on behalf of APAC News Network. My name is Rajnish, and I'm the consulting editor with APAC News Network. We are having the APAC Second Global Education and Skills Conclave the last 3 days, and the previous 2 days, the focus was on higher education. Today, the focus is on school education. So, before I introduce the esteemed set of panelists today, I would like to once mention the partners who associated with us for this program and without whose assistance arranging an event of such magnitude and scale would not have been possible. So I would like to thank the government of Gujarat, the government of Telangana, Education in Ireland, Coursera, ViewSonic, PayU, Globus, FlipLearn, Chitkara University, HVB Global Academy, Government of Andhra Pradesh, Government of Chhattisgarh, Government of Madhya Pradesh, Government of Uttarakhand, and TASK for associating with this program. Uh, in school, what has happened over the last 1.5 years, if we look at the pandemic time, and perhaps the school students, because these are the formative years, and perhaps the impact of the pandemic and sort of our migration to a virtual mode of education has perhaps been the most impacted community has perhaps been the students. And it's not just in terms of how they learn, but even as a psychological impact on them. The things have been very critical. So, the esteemed set of panelists today, we will be discussing that, and I'll take this opportunity first to introduce the panel who are today present here. From the school side, let me introduce Ms. Surabhi Goel. She is the CEO of Aditya Birla Education Academy. Welcome, Surabhi. Then I'd like to welcome Dr. Sanjay. He's a principal of KIIT International School. Welcome, Dr. Sanjay. I'd like to next welcome K. Prabhakaran, the principal of the Lawrence School, Uti. I'd also like to welcome Dr. Vidukesh Vimal, headmaster of the Assam Valley School. Welcome, Vidukesh. And I'd also like to welcome Madhu Khanna. She is the principal of the Global Indian International School, Tokyo. And to talk from the technology solution provider perspective, we have Venkataramanan, who is an education business manager from ViewSonic. And ViewSonic is one of the leading display solution provider. And we all know that since the virtual education has become so much technology dependent in last 1.5 years, especially, and displays perhaps one of the most critical components of that. So, normally the format that I would like to take is first, I will go through all the principals and the academicians who are present today and take their opinion on how technology partners are helping the schools today to maintain this quality of virtual education, and what more importantly are their expectations from the technology solution providers. The first I'll come to Sudhi, and my first question basically would be that in terms of when we are talking about, and in a country like India, students are coming from different socio-economic strata, and again also from very different geographies. Not everyone is from metro. Also, there are remote locations. So there are two issues. One is in terms of the internet connectivity and the quality of the connectivity across the countries, definitely not uniform. And the second is in terms of a device. So again, devices. So keeping these two challenges in mind, How have you? What do you feel is the role of the technology partners in helping deliver quality virtual education to students across different strata of society? Over to you, Sylvie.
Thank you for that question. You rightly said that obviously the most obvious problem is the digital divide in India, right? So it's the non-availability of output devices, whether it's the computer or even a humble smartphone. There are so many children who've literally, we were just discussing the panel here that they've literally have had a gap year because they have no access to both device or even a high-speed internet. In this case, of course, while it is the prerogative of the government to digitize India and rapidly and bring in technology to even the lowest strata of the population, I think it is also the role of the edtech companies who would also need to invest funds by giving these students the option to be able to access their content. But to answer your question as to what tech partners could do to improve the situation, I would say that they would also need to train the trainers. Now, whether they are a Balwadi, Anganwadi teacher, a Marathi teacher in Raigad, or even an English teacher working in an elite South Mumbai school, it is imperative that the teachers are trained to learn, unlearn, and relearn the use of hybrid model of learning. They will have to be taught how to blend the tech tools and enhance their teaching experience. And as of right now, actually even reach out to the learners. And all of this needs to happen in a non-threatening way because there is unfortunately a misconception amongst teachers that technology can replace them. And this is detrimental in the implementation of technology in the classroom. The teachers have to be assured that technology is a friend, and all of this can only happen with training and a change in the mindset of teachers.
Thank you. I'll come to Dr. Sanjay next. You have heard what Survi said, and one important point came up was retraining the teachers.
Yeah.
That can be the threat perspective that she talked about, and otherwise, even and across. What do you think? I'll also repeat the first question in terms of what has been your experience in terms of I will say, democratizing education to students from all strata of society in terms of the bandwidth and devices, as well as in terms of retraining the teachers. So, how far the role of technology solution providers is in here, Dr. Sanjay?
Yeah. I agree with I too agree with Ma'am Survi what she spoke, that technology partners have to come forward to train the teachers. But here, how to make those technology reach the children, those who are in the rural areas where the internet is not working or Wi-Fi system is not that valid. So maybe in term of gadgets, where it will be low cost gadgets, where edu tech partners can think of it, where they can be given those tab kind of things, where they need not have the internet. Previously, it must be a kind of embedded with those kind of things, their materials, the content, where it will be, the children can approach those things easily. And on the top of that, the training of the trainers, those who will be able to teach them in those areas, like Anganwadi workers or whatever, the rural areas. Because in the city like us, or the schools like us, we have not first faced much problem except the socio-emotional learning, like psychological things which are happening, where we are also able to try to address those things. But what you are talking about the moment, how to reach the every part, nook and corner of the country, that's really challenging. And here edutech partners have to make the content very very simple, in association with the contents have to be developed in association with those workers, those who are working in those areas, so that it will be rural based. Also it will be having some kind of national and international flavor into it, that I will talk about.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. I'll come to you, Madhu, now. My question is, since you're part of the international school in Tokyo, my question is, globally, what have been some of the best practices that have emerged in the last 1.5 years in imparting virtual education, and what has been the role of the technology solution providers there? And what do you would you suggest how some of those best practices can be replicated in here in India?
Yeah, thanks for your question. Uh, Although I am at Tokyo, which is considered to be the most advanced in terms of use of technology, what I saw was that the reality is that the parents here we have close to 40% parents who are Japanese, and the children are supported by their grandparents and they are not tech savvy. So the reality of the situation was that the training of not only teachers and students was required, but also training of parents to use the devices, as the school had searched in use of digital technology to cope up with the pandemic situation. It was more of training of parents as well. So be it using it's a mixed bag of, you cannot say one particular digital technology did the magic. It had to be a mixed bag of a use of technology in the classrooms, training the teachers, that is upgrading the skills in terms of being innovative as to how to enhance an online teaching, using of technology also in terms of not only running the regular teaching and learning process, but what about the rest aspect of it, be it the co-scholastic subjects, or how to do assessments, how to ensure that children are equally able to pay attention in an online class. Those were the challenges which all of us, I'm sure, must have faced. So some of the educational tech partners have come very, very, handy, and they have done a wonderful job. I'm sure all of you must be using them, be it, the Microsoft, or be it Google Classrooms or Zoom. These were the platforms which most of the schools have used. But then there were other lots of apps which could have been used and which were used, be it, the chat, Hangouts, Tata Edge, many Math Buddy, Epic, detailed assessments, and a lot more. In fact, there was an arena for teachers to play with technology, try different apps, try different technologies, and use it to the best of their advantage. What I foresee in terms of educational technology partners is that most children have substantially lost substantial infrastructure, instructional time, even if classes have been conducted, and may not be ready for the curricula or age appropriate prior after this pandemic. So the tech partners can actually play a role in addressing, by ensuring that children have these digital skills and access to remedials, access to implementation of a lot of measures which help in using reflections while learning, ensuring that the learner's need is met by supporting the design and implementation of digital transformation. Also, even teachers' efforts in terms of upscaling the skills. At our school, we used Percipio and Teamy, with almost more than 6,000 courses which teachers could use along with students. So every school tried their best to cope up with this situation, and it's a kind of non-reversible situation. We have to move forward with it. There's no way going back to the old system of teaching and learning. I hope I have addressed the question.
Sure. Thanks. That's interesting, and I'll come back to that later. I'll come to you, Mr. Prabhakaran, next. One, I would like to repeat the part about the democratization of education amongst all students, but I would like to focus you especially on two areas. One, Madhu touched upon the assessment part. How can technology coming from the solution providers help improve this assessment when it is being done virtually only? And the second part, I'd like to focus ultimately in a physical classroom. Normally, you have three, if I may say, category of students. There will be the majority will be the average students. There will be a few who are below average, and there will be a few who will be above average. And normally, the physical classroom teaching, the targeted is the more towards the average student. Now, in a virtual platform and using technology, how can the teachers sort of ensure that standardized method of quality teaching is reaching to the students of all the categories?
Thank you for asking a wonderful question. In fact, on a day-to-day basis, we are dealing, handling, trying to sort this issue. So, first of all, democratizing the education. See, the pandemic has caused a lot of impact. Some are positive, some are still very, very, what do you call it, in a crisis situation. But the positive aspect is that digital phobia has ended. People are feeling free to use the gadgets. It's not that these gadgets were not there before. It was there before. All those platforms which you are using, it was there before. But now, because of pandemic, a situation has come. This is the only viable platform available, so people are using it. So it become more and more democratized, and it's a good idea. It's always it gives you a lot of information, and it has its own speed and its own strength. Of course, technology, digital divide, these are the issues in any setup, in any society. These issues will come. We need to address it. Coming back to the point of assignment, look, basically, if you look at the students, the learning to a large extent is vested. That the students should take the responsibility of their learning. Even in a physical classroom, I can teach them, but I cannot penetrate into their brain or thought process until and unless he himself is willing to take it. The trust factor matters. The teachers can motivate, teachers can facilitate, we can counsel them, but to a large extent, whether it is a digital platform or a physical platform, we have to give the responsibility to the students that they are responsible for their learning. Number one. Number two, trust factor. Education is all about trusting each other. The parents are leaving their children with us, trusting that we'll do the best we can. Similarly, we are making the assessment with the students, whether it is whatever assessment we give, we trust that our children will have that academic honesty and integrity to do it. In a digital platform, you can make out certain questions which are higher order thinking driven, number one. And number two, even if you give him a textbook, you read the textbook, you read the matter, but you have to think. So we as a teacher has to generate a system where these tick two questions, the objective type questions, repeated questions, we should avoid making. So to a large extent, it depends upon us how you design a question paper. It's a challenge to a teacher, it's a challenge to a student. In bargain, you can develop the thinking process. So I use this as an opportunity. Otherwise, in a physical classroom with Indian curriculum, to a large extent, certain things are memory based. It's not that initiative and thinking based. I'm not blaming them. We do not have any other alternate system at the moment. And also, the children who have come out from Indian system are doing very well. If you look at whether it is Oxford, Cambridge, any field, most of the children who studied in the Indian system, basically up to 10th and 12th, they went outside and studied in various universities, and they become very successful in various walks of life. That is there. So there is nothing wrong with our Indian system, I could see. However, this opportunity can be used to change the question paper pattern and ask the assessment system in such a way that it is thinking driven rather than memory driven. Then another point you mentioned it, that physical classrooms, look, there is no substitute for face-to-face interaction. Even when I'm talking to you here on the electronic screen, there's a limitation. But when I see you, your face, the warmth, the interaction become much more lively. You can express your eyes, your face, your body. We always say in language, the strongest language is body language. In a physical classroom, it's very effective and there is no substitute for that. However, we can utilize various innovative techniques like live streaming. Instead of taking a class, recording it and showing it to them, talk to them, teach them live streaming. We have workstations in the classroom. The teachers come and teach the class, and teachers ask them, we take hand in it. So at least to some extent, ask them questions, talk to them, tell them to come once in a while, unmute your video, talk to us. So in that way, we can keep that, if not the direct physical contact, at least some level of mental intimacy we can keep it. But again, education is all about multiple facets. It's not just memory. It's not just your ability to handle technology, your availability of gadgets. It is about how you face difficult challenges. How are you going to accept a defeat? Winning and winning is part of life. You can get it. How are you going to relate with your seniors and juniors? How are you going to relate with a hardship? How you take a setback? How you understand that there are a lot of things is beyond your control. And even COVID situation. Look, COVID has taught us the toughest lesson in our life. Can we plan? We have been planning calendars and annual days and this and that. Now what happened? So teaching them, traveling through, sailing through the uncertainties of life. And that is also one aspect which COVID has taught us. But in physical classroom with sports, activities, games, interaction with the students, success, failure, disappointment, frustration, how to overcome out of these. This can be done to a large extent in physical classes, but in online solution, we try to ask them. It's a personal initiative again. Again, everything is fine. It depends upon how a person is going to use it. Even if you look at fire, if you take a fire through darkness, it will give you light. If you're going to take it through, in an explosive area, it will explode everything. So similarly, knowledge, information, technology, trust, all these things, we have to inculcate individually. There are certain level of personal initiative there with the management, individual teachers and the parents. But however, I do feel that, then I missed at one point, average, above average. Look, two things. These above average students, they're very gifted. No matter whatever you do, they have their own self-initiative. They drive themselves better. If you support them, they will reach perfection. Otherwise, they will manage. Below average students and average students always look for help. So you individually call them even out of your classroom time. You have to talk to them. The voice is very important, and you have to make them understand, look, apart from you, there is somebody else in this world who knows you, who wants to talk to you, who is concerned about you. It's an emotional touching. It's not that I teach class 10th or 12th. This is my job. No, there is somebody who knows you. It may not be a friend. Friends has got unlimited situations. Father and mother has got limitation. If a teacher, a housemaster, headmaster, house mistress, a tutor talks to him, it makes a lot of difference. So you have to connect that emotional connect with them. Morning 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, your teaching doesn't stop. Even after that, we need to travel an extra mile to touch their mind, so that we can catch hold of these below average and above average children and motivate them. But again, it narrows it down to number one, time factor. Number two, individual initiative of the teacher. Number three, teacher should understand that he is not just a person giving an information. He's much more than that. Emotional support, psychological support, friendliness, all these need to be needed. And COVID situation has taught us, all these things are very much important. This is how we have to sail through the times of uncertainty. I hope I have not taken too much of time and I addressed your issues.
Sure, and you have, in fact, spoken of a broader aspect which is so critical in today's scenario for the education. I'll come next to Vidukesh. Again, I'd like to put the same question, but rephrase it in a way, what in your experience, and specifically from a technology perspective, because technology has perhaps become the main catalyst in imparting education during these times. So technologically, it can be device, it can be bandwidth, or it can be even the economic subsidies provided around that. What, in your experience, have been the biggest challenges for students? And also, I'd like you to briefly touch upon the teachers, how they have sort of reacted to the technology savviness they had to inculcate in themselves. Over to you, Venkatesh.
Thank you very much for your question. Look, I had a school which is situated in Northeast, and that's why I have a better understanding of the realities. Because when we talk about say technology, the most important thing is your infrastructural setup. Fine. And I can tell you that, 1.5 years, parents, especially from remote areas, Arunachal, Nagaland, Manipur, those parts, it was very, very difficult for them to find a basic, stable internet bandwidth and a certain kind of thing, because these things may not, when you are sitting in a metro city or a big city, people may think it's like, in my childhood, I have spent my childhood in a place which was kind of a very disturbed area. Around Naxal issues were there, and that's why light, it was not very consistent. Light was not there. So whenever light used to come, people used to clap in the town. You can hear people clapping. If today's generation and people, those who live in metro city, they will laugh at us. That, okay, how come on earth you will clap when there is a light all around you? But this was the reality. So that's number one thing. It definitely, the digital divide, what Survi talked about. And I think infrastructure level, it is a responsibility of the government to ensure that certain basic infra base should be there. And I think they have taken, say, a charge on this part. The NEP also talks about it. But that's one area where I think the government has to play a very, very important role. And the way you treat medical facilities, the way you treat other basic infrastructures like road safety, law and order, those kind of stuff, and provide, I think internet should be one such priority from the government side, from the state government, from the central government. That's important part. Coming back to the second thing, which is again very important, is I'll say how teachers have responded to such situation. Fine. So that's what the word is, reaction. Sometimes, when you react to something, you don't react with, say, your mindfulness. That's why the right word is respond to something. And as again, I'll take the word from Survi. She exactly took the right word, that non-threatening environment. That's very, very important. What happens when you feel threatened? And that's why the two concepts which need to be understood. One is nature of complement, like you complement, and the second concept is nature of supplement, when you supplement something. And I think as in the education world, we need to understand that as a teacher, that technology is there to complement you, not supplement you. Because, the moment like it's like a chai and samosa. They complement each other, and, it adds value in life. The same way, when technology comes with, and a better teaching practice and pedagogy in the classroom, it helps. And we were fortunate that, we took this route, where non-threatening, and at the same time is a responsibility of the institution to build the capacity of the teachers. Building capacity is so important, because look, you have teachers in different age group. You have teachers, those who are in the early 20s or late 20s, those exposed to technology, they know, they use laptops and other stuff. But you have teachers in their late 50s, and they haven't, and they are limited by their experience. So as an institution, it's very, very important that you focus on capacity building. And we tried our level best through different resources and kind of stuff. And at the same time, we also need to create as an institution that master learning, that everyone must take their own pace of learning. Not necessary that, you decide like certain kind of pace for everyone. Because the majority of the schools, they fail in this regard. And they keep thinking that, everyone has to be at the same pace. And if you take the mastery learning concept, that's very, very important. And the most important part which we followed in our school is called UDA concept. UDA is basically when you observe, you orient yourself, you decide, and then you act. So when you are following this particular UDA way, you exactly know what is your need, and you are not going by what the market is offering you. So that's very, very important. And at last, the last and most important part is role of tech partners. There's a very famous say from Lucknow. Lucknow is the place where they kind of come up with all kind of couplets. There is a very famous Urdu couplet, fine, and which says, कि तिजारत में नमक हो उतना, तिजारत में मुनाफा हो उतना, खाने में नमक जितना. Fine, in your business, you should have that much of profit, the amount of salt you put in the food. And that's very important for the tech company, because you if you compare certain things, certain disasters, certain issues, there your attitude decides basically how far you will go in the market and how you are going to support. Because the moment your orientation is to make profit out of the situation, because people are in that particular, then what will happen, they will look for alternatives. Like we look for our own alternative and we customize our own thing, and very in a very limited way we manage our time and during this pandemic. But definitely I personally feel that tech companies, they must think on this direction, where they must work on obviously when you are having a business, you will go for profit, but then your profit should be how much, and this how much will decide how deep you will penetrate in the society and where you will be making the impact. Because that's very very important to today's time, that how deep you go into that part. If you worry on this aspect as a tech company, I think that will be taken care of. And the last and very important thing, which again everyone talked about, is training the trainers. Because it's not about just you can give a SLR camera, or you can give a kind of say machine to any individual, but if the individual doesn't know how to use it, fine. That's why I always say, because I click photographs, I can give simply an example from that. Photographs are not clicked by the cameras, photographs are clicked by the photographer. And that's why the photographer need to exactly know how to create the frame and exactly how to use the machine. And that is something, a huge problem in our country, especially in the rural area and say interiors, where still people are not equipped enough to handle machines. And that's why that training part, whether is a government and say kind of private partnership may happen, where they go for training, whatever you talk it, that's very very important. If that can be taken care of. And to conclude, the most important aspect is, A part is definitely technology. The B part is, ensuring that you develop a certain kind of pedagogy to teach on online platform. That's another aspect. You cannot teach on online platform using your old pedagogy, using your physical classroom pedagogy. You need to bring it, and that's why as a school we focus huge amount of say time we have invested on developing the soft skills, now kind of working with the dramatics and kind of theatrical skills, how to deliver, how to kind of communicate and connect with people. So the amount we spend on say training people, managing machines and managing technology, the same amount we have invested in terms of training our teachers, where voice modulation, where how to connect with, and as Prabhakaran sir talked about it, eye contact, and because you have to create the illusion of that you are looking at everyone and you are connected, because eyes they are very important aspect. So how to use your eyes on a digital platform, that's very important. So we have taken care of both aspects. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thanks. Now I'll come from the schools to one of the technology providers. We have Venkata here. Now, Venkat, you heard all of them talking about one sort of expectations schools are having from technology solution providers. So I'll ask you, my question is in two parts. One, very briefly, first, if you can talk about the ViewSonic display solutions and how it can help students, because display quality of display is very critical in that. But more importantly, beyond that, I also would like to touch upon sort of respond to what has been in terms of expectations from a technology solution provider, in providing economical solutions, especially for a lot of students who might not be in a position to afford very fancy devices and fancy technology. And two, one is economically they may not be able to afford, and second is even in terms of the technology infrastructure might not be suitable across the country in the more remote locations. So what would be your suggestion? What has been your experience, especially in these last 1.5 years?
Right. So when we develop technology partners, any product, whether it's a software or hardware, when we go to the boardroom, how we understand the problems of the teachers, and we design in such a way that we make teachers as the heroes inside the classroom. So that is the story that goes behind any product we develop. It should not be like we discussed, it should not be threatening for the teachers. Because Indian edtech has come a long way in the last 10 years, not even 10 years. The things which are presently available were not even present in 2015, most of the edtech companies. So this is one way is helpful for the students, but the other way they are drowning in a sea of opportunities. They do not know what they want to do. But as this ship needs a sailor, that's where the teachers. So the teachers play a much bigger role. So even in the future, so with the technology, the responsibility of the teacher increases a lot. So that's why we feel and we develop the product in such a way that we put teachers, heroes in front of the students, and then comes the students' interest, and then the content, everything. So and any technology partner in education, there are 3 different categories of technology partners in EdTech. The first one is the engagement. So whether it's any device, it's a laptop or a desktop or a projector or a display. So all this, even training to the teachers, as we were discussing, is one of the first component which we focus on, which is engagement. So engagement, which also includes the video communication devices and the solutions which we use. The second one is the content. Content is still the king inside the classroom with the teacher. So there are technology companies which build content for multiple different students. And the third one is, again, the back office, or what we call support, which includes the learning management systems, the attendance, the school fees, and the support, all the softwares which are ERPs which are needed for the school. So these are the 3 different categories of technology partners who are available to help the institutions. Engagement, content, and then the support. So coming to the second part of the question, how we enable different strata of students. So we have solutions, and most of the technology partners, they do consider this. They have solutions across different categories. So even with ViewSonic, we have synchronous solutions. So when the school and the student have a high bandwidth, they are connected in a high bandwidth network. We have synchronous learning. Synchronous learning is when the teachers and the students are connected live, and we have options for hybrid learning. So when the COVID settles and 50% of the students are inside the classroom and 50% are still at their home with their respective devices, so technology partners are developing solutions for that. So that is one end of the spectrum. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum, we have seen that teachers do not have bandwidth, they do not have devices, and even the students do not have devices. They probably switches of their parent, which is a smartphone. So in that case, technology partners are devising solutions which is asynchronous. So the teachers are invited to the school, and we arrange a shooting. We shoot the lessons, and then we segregate them into sections, and then send it over to the students' parents' mobile phone on WhatsApp. So this is our, say, upload on a Google Drive or any cloud drive, and then the students can access whenever they have access to network. So this is for the other end of the spectrum. So all the technology partners, whether it's again hardware, again in hardware we have one set of devices which will have a finger touch, NFC, all this embedded, which is for the high-end schools, and we have economical low-cost devices which can go into the other end of the spectrum. So both in hardware as well as software, technology partners have been considering both end of the spectrum, and then we have solutions for both, so that it's become an inclusive education. So there is no point in the technology partners focusing on only one. As rightly said, profit is not being the only motive for tech companies. So we focus on the complete, and India is just beginning, because if you see in the West, US or UK, where we have 80% of the classrooms are digital, probably we are somewhere pre-pandemic, we were about 2 to 3%. Probably now things would have been different, but that is what going at the technology partner side. We are seeing India as a country where 30 to 35% of the population is still below 25, one of the youngest countries in the world, and we see how technology can become inclusive for the entire participants. Yeah.
Thank you, Venkat. Now I'll come back to all the panelists with one question and take the opinion. See, whatever the situation, we all hoping that we don't get this third wave, or subsequent waves and the situation normalizes, but ultimately no one is very sure. No one is certain what will happen. So, in that scenario, what is likely to emerge, and what we have seen is perhaps schools will be the sector which will be opened at the last, after all sectors are opened. So, very likely we will see a blended kind of learning for the near foreseeable future, maybe even for years. So, my question to each of the panelists in that blended kind of scenario, increasingly, what will be the role of technology in that blended scenario? And you can put the context, even we have the NEP now, so gradually we'll look at the NEP implementation. So keeping that in mind, what will be the role of technology in this blended learning scenario, and how as a school, what sort of concrete actions will you take? What will your initiatives be to manage the whole situation? I'll start with you, Survi.
Um, so you're absolutely right. We were again just discussing before the discussion started that we don't know what the end of this tunnel is going to be like, right? There just doesn't seem to be any light at the end of this tunnel. We're not sure when the schools will actually really start. So we really have to start exploring other options as to how we're going to be able to make a school a better experience for children. And the hybrid model perhaps is here to stay. Maybe we start with grade 9, 10, 11, 12 and bring in those students. But I think a very important point that Dr. Vimal made was the change in the pedagogy. So I think as schools will have to rethink what we're teaching, how we're teaching, because we can't take the same curriculum offline and start implementing it online. And a lot of that has happened over the last 16 months. So that I think is a very positive change. Also, if you look at even CBSE, ICSE, testing has changed, right? Assessments, they're going to be having MCQs and all of that. That's also very, I know it's a short notice, but it's also a welcome change, because we've been talking about changing assessments forever. And I think finally, when we got thrown into the deep end, we're re-looking at the way we're doing assessments, which is again is I think a great step in the right direction. And I hope we don't lose all the learnings that we've had during the pandemic in that sense. As schools, what more we can do is, I'll give you an example. What we've done is we've hired tech integrators. Usually what happens is that teachers have enough on their plate and, they're really busy navigating the curriculum, learning new skills and all of that. So here's a tech integrator who's like how you have a librarian. So his job is to really curate edtech tools, see what really is working, bring in those, different apps and all of that into classroom to make learning more engaging, or even look at, just any kind of digital tools that are available. So we did hire somebody, like an edtech integrator. We also have something called a teaching learning community, where the teachers come together every fortnight or once in a month to share things that they might have worked in their classroom, and on the other hand also share challenges about something that didn't work. See, what happens for a teacher, it's very intimidating, right? Like now these children are in a way far smarter, they're digital natives. So teachers are also sometimes reluctant to try something new because they feel that they may make a mistake, or the children will make fun of them, or they'll say, oh, you don't even know this much, So teachers have to be given a safe place to experiment, try new things, and that can happen only by sharing of best practices. So it's the onus of the school leaders to ensure that they train their teachers, get them to experiment, support them with having a tech integrator, giving them access to new tools, and hopefully re-looking at the pedagogy, creating a flipped classroom where basically you do all your reading but come to the class only to discuss, debate, and understand the concepts better. So I think all of this together will really help change the mindset of both the learners and the teachers and make the hybrid model more successful.
Thanks. Dr. Sanjay, again, the same question, in this hybrid model, and specifically action points from you in terms of technology, and how would you look at handling the situation?
Yeah, I'll be very positive on this front. Though COVID-19 is challenging us to, causing us to challenge the deep-rooted notions of when, where, and how to deliver education in the right spirit. But these latest deployments include, because of the technology, we could do it like flipped classroom, as ma'am told. That concept is very, very nice. We have implemented. Even we have got the higher research opportunities for the children by involving the different education from different parts of the world. We have conducted webinar seminars for the children from with the NASA scientists and from different parts of the world. We have done it without real movements. That's a very, very positive thing. We have also got the people to have self-paced learning on their own pace after the school gets over, the timing of 3 to 3.5 hours. We have our self-paced learning with remedial lessons into it, like to address these the low performers or the average performers. We have the remedial sessions, and that is happening in presence with the parents. So it's a kind of one-to-one interaction is also happening. These are all positive things. Increased peer group discussion. When the projects, as ma'am told, that the assessment has to be different. Yes, we have added these project-based assessments, including the MCQs, so that a child will have to think, and they will all give the projects or their mindsets all differently, and that has increased a lot of peer group interaction, and that is happening to address these non-threatening issues. And also emergence of special new courses like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data analysis. All those things are coming up into the new curriculum, and we must welcome that. And that has become because of this COVID-19. I'm taking very, very positively, and the EdTech partners are really helping, and it is going in the right direction. But yes, a lot of things to be done to reach to each and every part of the country, because this digital India has to be now made that real up. And that is where the funding has to come from the EdTech agencies and other entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come to you, Madhu, now. Now, especially the same question, and only the perspective a little bit, as you earlier mentioned, and we know Japan is a very technologically advanced geography. So they're keeping in mind, maybe over the 1.5 year, the progress made would have been faster. So keeping that in mind, and we know the situation, what happened during the Olympics, also they were concerned. In a blended learning scenario, what actions vis-a-vis technology providers you would like to adopt, and how do you see the road going forward?
Yeah. So, to put it in the words, it has been a leapfrog moment for us. Innovation has suddenly moved, from the margins to the center of the education system here, and there's opportunity now to identify and try new strategies, sustain them, and help the students prepare for, the changing times. So, what we have focused a lot on is leveraging on data for informed decision making and analytics. So, we have done an in-house analytics system which we call as 7S. It is a it's a in-house developed innovative tool, and what my colleagues were mentioning as low achievers or high achievers, and how this data can flow into preparing an action plan for students to, which is customized to their learning. If a child is a fast learner or a high achiever, then what strategies could be inbuilt or incorporated using technology, and it is data driven. So these kind of techniques have helped us a lot. It has also become very transparent to our parents. The report cards are not just numbers and grades, but have become much more elaborate on the skills the child is learning. And this has been, possible by using technology, and of course, digital upgrading of digital skills of teachers, students, and parents alike. Also, one very interesting change has happened in terms of knowledge sharing and peer learning. So, as now it is all on use of technology, and we are a global community, so the expansion of peer learning and knowledge sharing has, compounded to reach out to students not only across our campuses but to anywhere at any time. It is 24/7 availability, and AI, coding, Scratch, robotics have taken a comfortable seat in the curriculum. It is not some CCA or an external add-on, but it has become a part of regular curriculum. And last but not the least, the way teachers are observed, the way um, how do I say, the way the overall assessment and monitoring happens has also changed. So it is no longer that you walk in the corridors and you go and then sit in the classroom and do observation. The entire scope of teacher observation, skill assessments has changed. So these are some of the key areas wherein which were brought in and which are here to stay.
Really interesting to know that. Come to Mr. Prabhakaran. Mike, again, the same question in terms of the actions that we have to build blended learning kind of model in the future. And I'd like to add one point. I think someone, Surbhi, talked about the digital native amongst the students. So even if we very broadly classify students, there will be a primary school and the secondary and the higher secondary, the higher classes. Now, this digital savvy, the tech savvy, even the primary kids are now, today's generation are tech savvy. So, within the primary and the secondary, higher secondary, have you seen any significant differentiation in how they have adopted technology in learning between the two kind of students? So the first is the action in the blended learning model, and in additional this question.
Yeah. First of all, look, with COVID, without COVID, technological revolution has helped us. I can remember about 30 years back, if I want to speak to somebody the next to hometown, I have to book a trunk call and wait for 3 to 4 hours or even 5 hours. Now I can speak to Madhu ma'am who is in Tokyo and I'm sitting here in Loudale just like that. I can speak, you can see me. So this is a cutting edge that technology has given us. And this should continue because it has been a great blessing. And COVID situation has accelerated further use and development of this digital world. So this should continue and the blended model will be available. And if even if, as you mentioned it, it is unpredictable whether we are going to reopen or when are we going to reopen, how are we going to face a challenge. All these are there, but we are fairly good enough that we know how to handle technology. There are multiple technological gadgets and supports are available. You just have to reach out, and children are used to it. But when you talk about the children's ability, I have generally felt that the students in that middle school, again, I may be right, I may be wrong, the middle school that 7, 8, 9, they're much more faster than adopting the change. Class 11th and 12th, still they're good. Some of them are good, but still they have a bit of a hangover accessing the technology, thinking about their thing. And the kids who are below that 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, though I don't deal with children below 4, they are actually not very happy with the technology because they are children. They are used to play and physical movement is more important to them. But they are by and large is okay with it, but they are not very comfortable and they are not very happy. I get a lot of complaints and concern from that age group. But middle year, that is middle school level, by and large, is they're very adaptable and they have picked it up and they have realized it. This is the new method to the modern world, so they have picked it up. So this is what my observation is. Another thing is, look, again, I always say this: we human beings have got amazing ability to adapt and evolve. So technology is handy now. In the past, even without technology, we have evolved. It's an evolving time. We have a great support called technology, connectivity, and government and management, and everybody should give that access, support to get that technological support and that digital support to larger number of population so that we can come out with it. But I do feel that we will definitely overcome, and it's an evolving time, and technology will definitely will be one of our positive point, a cutting edge we get to deal with the issues. As it is working on well. It is working on well. Then even though you didn't ask me, I want to put other aspect of it, the human aspect of it, that we need to change our pedagogy, not direct questions, assessment system, in such a way that technology will be a help, technology will support you, but yet you have to think and you have to analyze to understand the answers, understand the world. That we can adapt, and we teachers and faculty should spend some more time to research and find out that solution. I hope I addressed to your question.
Sure. Thank you. Dr. Vidukesh, now coming to you again, one obviously, I would like to know what actions, especially vis-a-vis technology, you plan in this blended learning scenario. And I would also put that question I put to Shri Prabhakaran on terms of the students, the primary and the higher school and the middle school students, in terms of adoption to technology, how conversant they are.
Thank you for your question. Uh, Number one thing, if we talk about technology and how we are moving ahead, so I have given the word called phygital, fine, because physical and digital, it has to go together. And this word is now these days the buzzword in the education world. That you need to think on physical and digital both ways. And that's why your classroom setup, your school should have this facility. We have upgraded ourselves, and we are as a school, we are very much ready to provide physical. We have done in the, last year also, but it was a makeshift arrangement. During these long holidays, we ensured that it is done permanently, and that's very important. The second part, which is very interesting, when we talk about hybrid, how ready you are. If you look at the whole digital, because we were trying to survive in last 1.5 years, fine, the whole focus is on classroom learning and teaching. But education is not about just content and classroom learning and teaching. What about other aspects? What about activities? What about kind of engagement in different forms? And as schools, how much we are able to kind of reach, and we are able to do it. And still, I think is a huge gap. And I think this is the business opportunity for ed tech companies also to come up with solutions, to kind of come up with certain things which helps you to ensure that schools in such a difficult time, that run parallelly certain very important aspects which adds value in children's life outside the classroom as well. Because there are things, but at present those things are scattered. If someone can bring it together in a package and say, look, these are the customized thing for the school. Because in today's world, one of the biggest challenge which I personally feel for any individual is not the choice, because there's ample choice. The biggest challenge is to make the right choice out of the options. So that's why to make that right choice, if the ed tech companies and technology based those individuals, if they can come up with that, it will be great help. Now coming to the students part, their understanding and their thing, definitely they are proficient. They are sync with the time, their understanding. But the ethical issues of using technology, this is something every school needs to invest a lot of time and training. We on very say regular basis, we have kind of gone for outsourced individuals from different fields. Recently we have Mr. Rakshit Tandon talking to our students and the staff. But I personally feel that the ethics and the ethical use of technology is something which needs to be taught to our children, where how to respect the private space, how to respect individuals, and the concept of choice and the consequences. Because many students, in their urge to do something different just for the sake of doing it, they make that choice. But their understanding of that you are not free from the consequence of your choice, that needs to be taught. That's very important. And the biggest and the most important, I personally feel, the challenge at present is that technology takes you to loneliness, and that's not the natural way of growing up. Especially when you talk about the primary kids, when you talk, because it's about being together. childhood and school education is about being together because you are learning the social skills. And honestly, this aspect needs to be addressed in a different, and that's why schools need to come up. I just said in the beginning, schools, they have to plan it something beyond classroom teaching and beyond content teaching as well, so that the sense of togetherness, the spirit of togetherness, that we are together as a class. Like I run a boarding school. We have a tutorial system where 7 to 8 kids, they are together in one tutorial system, or say the house system. We ensure that without any purpose, people must be together on that platform to interact with each other. But that's very important part. But for the younger ones, I personally feel this is not the natural way of doing it, because they know how to handle the technology in terms of operational level, but their understanding of the choices what they make on, say, while using the machine, using things here, you need customized at tech companies, which ensures, like, certain things, you don't go beyond that. Everything is available to you in that particular platform, and you don't go beyond that. That's very important.
Thank you. And Venkat, you literally have the last word in today's panel discussion. So now all the schools, they have sort of mentioned about the plans or the initiatives. So as a technology solution provider, this blended learning scenario, how would you customize your solution? If you can briefly take us through that, and maybe you even have a video that can showcase what you can. So, very briefly, we are just running out of time.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we are just starting, and the technology and the solutions also change every now and then. So based on the needs and wants of the teacher and the education ecosystem, the technology partners also develop different softwares and hardwares. And I certainly believe 2-3 years from now, Indian EdTech will be in a completely new space. Yeah.
Okay, so if you can showcase some of the solutions in that video.
I don't have it handy. We will have it.
No one was prepared for the year we had, but I knew that my job as a teacher was to be the rock for my students. So I needed a way to engage my students from wherever I happened to be. And then I found the perfect solution, My Viewboard Classroom. Because My Viewboard Classroom has video and collaboration tools built in, all my students could engage whether in class or at home. Today, I worry about how my students will adjust to being in person and how I will use what I learned in the past year. They love using their portable pen displays while at home, and they can bring those displays into the classroom too. The tools in My Viewboard Classroom are fun and engaging, which really helps me differentiate my instruction and helps address learning gaps.
There's not much that keeps me up at night, but I often think about how I can make my lesson reach a particular student, or if I could share a more real-life example, or encourage my students to push their expectations of themselves. I continue to have hope that all I put in will inspire my students to reach higher.
My Viewboard has been a game changer for me. I have cool and engaging ways to get my students involved in the lesson.
It's a total package that allows me to connect any device, no matter where I am, to content I've used for years, and share my lessons with students wherever they are. My students can engage with awesome tools like Pop Quiz and Throw. This gives me a quick snapshot to check for understanding and pivot my lessons on the fly to enhance comprehension. My Viewboard made teaching from home easier and will definitely make my teaching better as we head back to the classroom. ViewSonic makes back to school easier.
Great. Some of the solutions, I'm sure. Yeah, yes, sir. You were saying something. Some of these solutions can definitely be used in across schools. Someone, okay. So we come to, we had a very insightful discussion, and hopefully there are a lot of schools, about 400, 500 schools who are participating in the platform and watching this discussion. So I'm sure some of the suggestions and action points mentioned by the eminent panelists here, the other schools can also replicate in their environment. And I'm sure at least in the blended learning scenario in the near foreseeable future, technology will play an important role. And the way the schools will connect with the technology providers can be beneficial for students. Ultimately, all of us agree that physical classroom learning can never replace whatever technology does. But again, keeping this mind the pandemic scenario, whatever best can be done through technology, I'm sure will be done. So thanks to all the panelists again. And I wish all of you have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us over. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, all the four panelists. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Thank you.